Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvashavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeni Murti Bheda Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Ukarastvandhakaro Vai Rukarastan Nivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvad Gururityabhidhiyate. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Read the 8th verse on the page 9. Bheda bhavanat sohamityasau bhavanabhida pavanimata. So this is what the Advaitins says. Bheda bhavanat. Rather than beginning our spiritual quest with accepting a duality between the seeker and the sought, I am the seeker. What I am seeking in my life, seeker means the one who is seeking something. The fact that there are desires in my mind arising one after the other shows that I want something in life, I am seeking something in life, and we would analyze what I am seeking is to be free from all seeking, free from all want, lack, desire. I want to be free. And I can be free when there is no lack, I am limitless. So, whether we know it or not, we are seeking to be free, limitless. That is a fact. Then the question is, then whatever sadhana, spiritual practices we do, whether it is karma yoga, where we perform our duties as an offering to Ishvara, or bhakti, when we perform special actions for, again, worshipping Ishvara. Later on we'll talk of yoga, jnanam, any kind of spiritual sadhana we may be doing. Suhamiti asau abhida bhavana. We should have recognition of the fact that what I am seeking is ultimately not separate from, not different from me. That I am seeking to be free, that freedom is not different from me, it is my own nature. Then why am I seeking? Because of ignorance, and therefore my mind has wrong conclusions that I am a bound, limited individual. So it is not that we have to become free from real limitation, we have to become free from the notion of limitation. It is not that I am bound right now and I have to become free from bondage. But right now I have a notion that I am bound and therefore I have to become free from that notion of bondage, understand? The 10th man story, each one is searching for the 10th man, wants to become 10th man, wants to see 10th man, experience 10th man, gain 10th man, know 10th man. In spite of there being 10th man, that is because there is a notion that I am not the 10th man, I am 9th man, 10th man is lost. You follow? So it is not that he has to get the 10th man, he has to become free from the notion that I am not the 10th man. Understand? So when he is told you are the 10th man, and I say, oh, the tube light happens in his mind, yeah. So what happens? It's not that he sees the 10th man, experience the notion that I am not, that notion that I am not the 10th man. The 10th man is different from me. I have to search for him. That notion goes away. You follow this? Ignorance goes away. 10th man is always there. So here, Ramana Maharshi says that you begin any sadhanam you take, whether it's karma yoga, bhakti yoga, Patanjali yoga, which Swami Viditatmananda called Raja yoga, Jnana yoga. Begin with this, that what I am seeking is my own self. Even though I may not right now experience that or feel that, and still that is a fact about me. This is very important. So thus what I am seeking, that limitlessness is called Ishvara. Jivatma is seeking Ishvara, wants to know Ishvara, wants to become Ishvara. Recognize that what is necessary is for the notion to go rather than for something new to happen. Asau abhida sohamiti asau abhida bhavana. Abhida, bhida means bheda, means duality. Abhida, abheda, non-duality. Abhida bhavana, the attitude of non-duality. We say in the morning, until it becomes knowledge, that is attitude. I still don't see myself as Brahman. But I begin with the attitude that I am Brahman. I don't see you as Brahman, that everything is Brahman. I begin with that. What is Brahman, that is what Upanishads teach. Tattvamasi, you are Brahman, I am Brahman. What is Brahman? Although I may not right now see that fact because of the impurities in my mind, notions in my mind. But rather than denying the fact that everything is Brahman, I deny my present notions. I don't give reality to my notion that I am a Jivatma, I give reality to what the Upanishad says, that I am Brahman. And that I want to make it a reality. So sadhanam is meant for making reality what is already there. So here in this verse number 8, Ramana Maharshi says that bhakti means bhavana, an attitude of surrender to Ishvara, devotion to Ishvara, offering to Ishvara, pleasing Ishvara. There also abhida bhavana, Ishvara whom I am pleasing, Ishvara whom I am surrendered to, Ishvara whose grace I want, is ultimately my own self. So that Abheda Bhavana, keep that in mind always. Says, even when you meditate upon Ishvara, have that bhavana or have that attitude that ultimately Ishvara is my own self. Pavanimata. See, that Abheda Bhavana, the attitude of non-duality will one day become a reality. Because it's a reality. If attitude is based on reality, then someday, for example, we are taught values of ahimsa, satya, asteya, amanitvam, adambitvam, truthfulness, we are asked to speak truth, be honest, don't hurt anybody. So these values we are taught. And right now I have a tendency to hurt others, so I have to make an effort to be non-violent. I have a tendency to tell a lie because of my insecurity inside, so I have to make an effort to tell the truth. But ultimately, ahimsa is my nature, satya also is my nature, therefore someday it will become reality for me. What is the value right now will become a reality. I will become ahimsa, or I being ahimsaka I will become. Because ahimsa is the nature of the self. So while practicing value of ahimsa, we are practicing self. You follow that? So someday I'll become a non-violent being in a true sense. By practicing that value, I'm approaching myself, coming closer and closer to myself. Ultimately, I find myself to be non-violent as the reality of myself. Because only in non-duality, real non-violence can be there. I can be non-violent only to myself. As long as I see anybody other than me, some violence will be involved. But I try to suppress that violence, ultimately discovering that non-violence is my nature, is the truth of everything. So also, this non-duality is the truth of myself, of everything. What is Brahman? Keep that in mind. In any puja, whatever you do, even if you accept the duality of the Lord in you and perform all those rituals, in the back of the mind there should be there that ultimately Bhagavan is not, I am not different from Bhagavan. That all this worship is performed so that that duality which I feel is there will ultimately go away. Abhida Bhavana Pavanimata is purifying. What is purifying? What is the impurity? The Bheda, duality is impurity, that you are different, I am different, is a great impurity. When I look upon you as different from me, I am excluding you from me. Understand? That's called duality. In my thought of I don't include you. Isn't it? In I, you are not included. When I want happiness for I don't care for your happiness, I care for my happiness. Then it is likely that in the pursuit of happiness of I may even hurt your happiness, it's likely. So ultimately all the impurity arises from this Dvaita, Bheda Bhavana, or the sense of division, of excluding you from me and excluding me from you. This is to be understood. All the problems in the world are all arising from this Bheda Bhavana, that you are different. You are white and I am black, and you are this and I am that, and you belong there and I belong here. This is yours, this is mine, and I want to make this is mine. This is all based on duality, is it not so? Whatever conflicts there are in the world or in our own life also. All the conflicts arise from excluding others. And nobody likes to be excluded. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says that when you exclude somebody, says that when I look upon a Brahmana as separate from me, then a Brahmana rejects me. Then when I look upon somebody as separate from me, then I am rejected by that because that also doesn't accept me. So when I look upon you as different from me, in effect I am rejecting you, excluding you, and the result is that you exclude me. That is a conflict. So all apavitrata, all impurity, ultimately the grossest is ragadveshas, that attachment aversion also requires duality. I can have attachment of someone different from me, aversion also from someone different from me. For me, I cannot have attachment or aversion. Only love can be there. So Vedanta explains that all these problems and impurities and ragadveshas and sorrow, everything arises from this original sense of duality, of looking upon you as different from me and me as different from you. So don't give it reality. Even though you are functioning in duality, you are worshipping dualities, you may do that because that's where you are right now, by default. But don't give reality, otherwise that will persist. If I give reality, it will never go away. So Abhida Bhavana, Pavani Mata, this bhavana, this attitude, this acceptance of Abhida, non-duality, is purifying. That will remove all the impurities arising from duality. In our life also. When we have conflict with others, when we have all kinds of difficulties with other people, which we all have, it all arises from the division that you are different, I am different. You are not me, I am not you. That's your opinion, this is mine, etc. So, more distance you create between the two, more conflicts arise. What is love is erasing that distance. Well, Puja Swamiji say, when a married couple would come to Swamiji, what is our duty? He says, the duty of wife is to make the husband happy, the husband is to make the wife happy. They'll try for life together. It's not easy to do that. But you can do that only when you try to erase that duality. Otherwise you can't do that. Because I always want to make myself happy. I can make you happy provided I have a value that you are not basically different from me. That ahankara has to let go for me to make you happy. That's the process. So keeping the ultimate reality in mind, do whatever you are doing. Abhida bhavana, pavani mata, all apavitrata, apavanam. Everything arises from Bheda Bhavana, Bheda Bhavana. Don't call it, we call it division. Duality doesn't convey actually what we mean. Division, mutual exclusion is called duality. And so, if this is what you meditate upon oneness, have that bhavana. What is meditation? What is going on in the mind? Even when you are performing puja, chanting stotram, the bhakti that was described, earlier in the earlier verses. Pujanam, japaha, chintanam, or culminate chintanam, meditation, mental worship. All along have this abhida bhavana. Because that is reality, therefore it will someday assert itself and eliminate all other bhavanas arising from ignorance. The Abheda Bhavana, non-duality is the only thing that is compatible to knowledge. All Bheda Bhavana is all only because of ignorance. And only knowledge can remove ignorance. Therefore, if our bhavana or our basic assumption is based on non-duality, someday it will remove all the conflicts born of duality, born of ignorance. And where will it lead? So next verse is on the page 10. Bhava shunya sad bhava susthiti bhavana balad bhaktiruttama. This, these are very pithy statements, and therefore these words or compounds are to be properly understood. Bhava shunya. Now the bhava. Bhava shunya. Next line is bhavana balat. Bala means strength. Bhavana balat. What bhavana? The earlier verse said abhida bhavana. The previous verse that we just discussed talked about so abhida bhavana pavani mata. That attitude of non-duality is what is meant by bhavana. Second line says bhavana balat. By bala, by the strength of this attitude of non-duality. That I keep on asserting the non-duality in my mind. And that is how that idea of non-duality becomes stronger and stronger because I am committed to that, because that is what I assert. In my mind, the duality will arise because of habitual error, that I am different, you are, that will keep on arising. By habitual error, by default these days, that's the expression they use. So what's the ringtone? This is the ringtone by default. You don't do anything, it just takes place by itself. So by default in our life, there is Bheda Bhavana, this duality, you are separate, I am separate, I am this and you are that. Unfortunately, in the world, this is glorified. The world glorifies this duality and I distinguish myself from everybody else. So in Ahmedabad in olden days, this famous textile mill used to make, there used to be this advertisement, distinguish yourself. By wearing this clothes, that's a distinguish yourself. And that is called success. More I distinguish myself, more I stand out in everything else, I am successful. I don't realize that I am isolating also myself by doing that. The ego may get satisfied, but my heart becomes isolated. Because I know that if nobody likes me because I distinguish myself, I assert myself as someone separate and superior to others, and nobody, I know that people don't like it. I build a 15, 25-story house, and there are all kinds of hutmans around. I know that they don't like me. Well, looking at this, well, someday this house we should get, Therefore, in that distinguishing myself, self-assertion, asserting ego, there is always insecurity and also fear involved there. Even the world calls it success, unfortunately. There is nothing wrong in earning money, being famous, attaining power, nothing wrong in it. As long as They are empowerment, you can use them for, contributing to the world. But if I think that I distinguish myself and therefore I stand out, assert myself in comparison to others, then I am only creating a ground for all unhappiness for myself. It is recognizing that that is not the way to success. In fact, when I become totally free from this sense of individuality, that is when the true success is, that is when the true happiness is, that's where the oneness is, that's where the love or happiness is. So Vedanta teaches a different aspect, different concept of success. Not asserting individuality, not distinguishing yourself, erasing those distinctions. Distinction of Visheshata. Visheshata means attributes, separatedness, distinctions. The world considers more and more Visheshata, more and more distinctions as mark of success. Vedanta says that don't judge yourself by this distinction, recognize that becoming free from distinction erases all the created distances and enables you to see yourself as free from all limitations. Thus, Abhida Bhavana, constantly asserting this bhavana, this attitude or this understanding of non-duality. Why is it necessary to do that? Because my mind by default comes up with division. That's the habit. We are all afraid, in fact. They teach us value of truthfulness, honesty, and I am always afraid. What will happen to me, Swamiji, if I become honest? They will all take advantage of me. They will all walk all over me. They will use me as, doormat, etc. There is always fear. I mean, you respect that fear. I don't mean that you just plunge into things, but that is what the mind always comes up with this. If I give reality to the fear, then I will always remain in fear. So, non-violence is reality, violence is not. Truthfulness is reality, untruthfulness is not. Oneness is reality, division is not. Love is reality, hatred is not. Abhida Bhavana. So thus this Abhida Bhavana is called Bhavana here. That word Abhida is not used here. Second line says Bhavana Balat, by the strength of the Bhavana. This Bhavana attitude gains a strength when I practice more and more of it. Any idea that I entered in my mind again and again and again will gather strength. Whatever ideas have become strong in my mind is only due to practice of that idea, good, bad or indifferent, whatever they are. So now this new idea, Abhida Bhavana, and more it is practiced. My prayers, my worship, my service, whatever I do, behind that there is an attitude, I want to erase the duality, even though I feel it, I want to erase it. When performing action, performing anything, even though my mind comes up with the Bheda Bhavana, because that's a habit, I try to assert the Abheda Bhavana in my mind. So right now, Bheda Bhavana is very strong. Without any effort, the Bheda Bhavana, that attitude of duality, division, individuality asserts itself. And therefore I should with an effort assert the Abhida Bhavana. It will take time, but then it will slowly gain strength. More practice I do, even Swamiji, they say, posture correction. They keep telling me straight this way, sit this way and that way. Again I slump down, So by default I slump down. And then when I become alert, you have to practice it, Swamiji. Breathing, you have to practice your breathing wrongly. Correct breathing, correct sitting, correct walking. Everything I'm doing wrong. And if I'm not alert, then automatically sitting will be like this, walking will be like that. Hill, toe, 12 o'clock, not this way. Any habit can be corrected only when we are alert and deliberately do the right thing, then only what is habitually wrong will be corrected, not otherwise. So this wrong habit of giving reality to duality is just a habit, not a reality. Just because I do something doesn't mean it is real, that I am walking this way. It's not the reality, it's a habit. This abhida bhavana balat, or abhida bhavana balat, by the strength of that bhavana or the attitude or asserting understanding of non-duality. Understanding. What happens? Bhava shunya, slowly that bhavana or the attitude of duality which was habitually asserted, it becomes weaker, this one becomes stronger and stronger and stronger by my alert, deliberate effort. So to do right things, we require to be alert and we have to deliberate and do it effortfully. Wrong thing habitually happens without any effort. Ignorance is without effort. Ahankara is without effort. Duality without effort. Ragadvesha without effort. I don't need to make any effort. To become free from all these things, I have to make an effort. And you said all this evil arise ultimately from giving reality to duality. Now we understand this from the teaching. And therefore, base whatever you do on non-duality, in your mind at least. Outwardly you may be doing conducting yourself and doing that what you are doing anyway. But doing is one thing, understanding is different thing. So let the understanding of non-duality keep on asserting itself. And that will slowly and slowly, because duality and understanding duality is wrong, and therefore it is slowly and slowly erased by the right understanding of non-duality. Bhava shunya, slowly that bhava, the duality, will erase and ultimately will completely eliminated because it is wrong, therefore. Something can be eliminated only if it is wrong or out, reality can never be eliminated. If duality is real, if I am different from you, that's a reality, it can never be eliminated. But do you know that in deep sleep state there is no duality? Every day we experience a non-duality, understand? When I am fast asleep, you are fast asleep. There is no difference between your deep sleep and my deep sleep. Or deep sleep, a king or a beggar, they are the same as far as deep sleep is concerned, because individuality is not there. The ego which creates division is not there in deep sleep, therefore I am totally free and anybody is totally free. The deep sleep state is experience of non-duality. If duality was there, it would there in deep sleep also. It will never go. Reality can never go away, can never be erased, can never be negated. Our experiences show that non-duality is true. Puja Swami used to say that formerly Acharyas had difficulty. They all were vehemently against the idea of this mithyatvam. Shankaracharya was branded as a Mayavadi, who promoted Maya. He's not Maya, he's Brahmavadi, not Mayavadi. Who is Brahmavadi? He says everything is Brahman. Then how do you talk of explain duality? By Maya. Duality is Maya, not Brahman is Maya. And Maya creates mithya. But those days they are difficult in understanding what mithya is. This is all world right in front of you, it's all tangible. How can you call it mithya? The problem was that how can you call this mithya? All tangible. Now science has proven that there is no tangibility. This tangible under certain conditions, isn't it? At a certain speed of the observer, that goes, if changes, and this tangibly changes. Einstein carried out all those experiments mentally. That if you are observing these walls and corners which are all very solid, if you ride in a space shift or spaceship or something, as the speed increases, this thing slowly starts losing its solidity, tangibility. Or a time will come, the solid lines will become wavy lines, and then slowly they'll lose solidity completely. Nothing will remain. If you attain the speed of light, nothing will remain. No tangibility will remain. So as long as you are at this speed, the observer, so long this is what it appears to be. If you increase the speed of the observer, then what is observed also changes. And therefore, what does science discover? That ultimately is no tangibility. This is called energy. No tangibility. Energy manifests as this tangible matter. So therefore, this is mithya is very clear today. It's called theory of relativity. And then this is a simple way of saying it, but they say that this world of 3 dimension is a projection of world of 4 dimension, or reality of 4 dimension or n dimension. So mithya, to understand now, it's not a problem for us. The duality is mithya is very clear to us. Although it has not gone into my head and I continue to live like, but if we even understand science and keep, put that into practice, then this is a way of energy and this is a way of energy, this is also a way of energy. Substance is one, like the waves of water. Substance is one. And so even science also helps. Basically what Vedanta has taught is what science is proving. So bhava shunya, this duality will slowly and slowly be erased and leaving what? Non-dual. What is sat or existence? So satchit ananda is what is left. Asti bhati priyam. Sadbhava means the state of sat. Sat means existence. Sat means chit. Chit means ananda, satchidananda. Asti bhati priyam, satyam jnanamanandam, Brahma. What we call Ishvara today, or Paramatma or Brahman, is called Sat. Sadeva Swami idamagrasit ekameva advitiyam. Upanishad says that all the universe before its creation was Sat, one and non-dual. So this duality is Sat appearing as all this duality. So appearance slowly subsides and what remains is what appears, namely Sat. That is the self. Sadbhava susthiti. And therefore, bhava means state of Sat, state of non-duality. Susthiti, abidance in that non-duality. Because duality, division is a product of ignorance, and therefore it is mithya, and therefore it can be eliminated completely. Vedanta gives example of rope snake. You know rope snake example? A piece of rope appearing as a snake. The rope snake can completely disappear. Nothing else can disappear. Rope cannot disappear. Rope snake is product of projection of the mind, will disappear when you show light there. So this division is a product of ignorance, projection of the mind. So when mind sees sadbhava, what I am is sat, what is sat. Sadbhava susthitihi, sthitihi, state, susthiti, abidance. So ultimately, by this practice of non-duality, the practice of non-duality, the meditation, which is the mental practice of non-duality, will also progressively erase the strength of the duality, and the duality will be completely erased when this meditator gets established in sat, that is his true nature, is non-dual. Ramana Maharshi says, Bhakti, this is Uttama Bhakti, this most exalted bhakti or devotion. So what is devotion is explained here. It is not that a certain action is called devotion. Although this morning we said that certain actions are those which are very conducive to invoking the devotee in me, therefore we perform the special actions of puja, archana, and japa, stotra, chanting, etc. But behind what is bhakti? Behind what is that I am seeking through all that? If I am seeking some material, you can do all those things also to go to heaven, by the way. There are many. Hanuman Chalisa you recite not for necessarily, you recite, jo satabar path agar koi chhute bhai, 100 times you chant Hanuman Chalisa, you can accomplish this and accomplish that. So people do that, and nothing wrong in it. Swami ji, abhi kuch reh gaya hai, so I'll chant 100 times Hanuman Chalisa. Do that. So that will happen by Hanumanji's grace. That's not called bhakti. I am not bhakta of Hanuman. I am bhakta of what I want. Hanumanji, please do this for me. I am seeking this contract, please do that. I go to Tirupati and put money in the hundi with sankalpa that now my son should get this. So I am bhakta of Tirupati or my sons, I am bhakta of what? I am not criticizing that you should not, desire something from Ishvara, but we must understand, I am not worshipping Bhagavan for sake of Bhagavan, I am taking advantage of Bhagavan. Is it not so? It's like my coming to you and talking very nicely and then ultimately, we have this souvenir coming up. How about this advertisement? So my doing all this and taking you for dinner, etc. is for some contract ultimately, isn't it? That goes on in the business world, that's all right. With Bhagavan also it goes on. We take him for dinner, all this, lot of things we offer him. So that Bhagavan is pleased and I get this benefit. But that is keeping distance with Bhagavan, that you remain where you are and I remain where I am, so I keep on receiving your favor and therefore I only again nourish my individuality ego and I want to make ego happy. Do that, nothing wrong, but that is not bhakti. When I worship Bhagavan for the sake of Bhagavan, what I want from Bhagavan, I want you. I want you in what manner? I want you as So, I want to have your darshan. As Dhruva say, I want to have Bhagavan's darshan. Bhagavan appears. But Raman Maharshi would say that I am asking Bhagavan to reveal himself as my own self. Let's see. What best you can ask from Bhagavan is, please, you reveal yourself as myself. So that whatever distance I am feeling right now doesn't remain. Bhakti Uttama. So this is how Uttama Bhakti, this is the most exalted Bhakti. It's still called Bhakti because it is only bhavana of non-duality. Knowledge of non-duality, bhavana also creates the same thing that knowledge will do. So this bhavana of non-duality also culminates into abidance in my true nature, which is Bhagavan or Sat. Bhakti, Uttama Bhakti, that is called most exalted Bhakti. That means where Bhakti that involves duality is also Bhakti. But Bhakti that wants to erase duality is the most exalted Bhakti. And so this one said, Bhava Susthitihi, an abidance in the true nature. So the next verse clarifies that. Krusthale mana swasthata kriya bhakti yoga bodhascha nishchitam. Hrut sthale. Sthale means a place. Hrut means heart. Hrut sthale, in the heart. Now word hrut can be understood as heart, physical heart, and that is a place of concentration that Yoga Shastra recommends. For Vedantin, that hrut does not mean heart, you are not focusing, you may focus, but ultimately you want to focus upon the true nature of the self. Hrut is heart. Heart can mean the essential, the core of the thing, the essential nature of something. Hrusthale manasvastha. Manasvastha is one word. Swasthata. Swastha means health, isn't it? Oh, swasthata. Swa means what? The self. Stha means to be. Swasthata, to be in the self. In our common language, swastha means health. I am swastha. But really, what swastha means is to be myself. So means myself. To abide in myself, swastha. Swasthata, abiding in myself. The mind right now, what is mind? Mind is, that will come later on also, but mind means various thoughts, flow of thoughts. But what is mind? Flow of thoughts. Like in the river, the flow of water. So what is mind? The flow of thoughts. One thought followed by the other thought. And usually mind keeps on wandering everywhere from one object to the other, therefore Vishaya. The objects of thought keep on changing. And therefore the sadhana is that the mind should be slowly made free from this wandering and from one object to the other. The poor mind is wandering because it is seeking something, understand? Mind wanders not for no reason, because it has an agenda. What's the agenda? It wants happiness. So it goes here like a bird, flying here and there, seeking food. The mind also wanders from one place to the other, one object to the other. When Upanishad also says, that just as a bird which is tied to a post keeps on flying, wants to be free, goes in one direction, this direction, and not finding any refuge, comes back to where it is tied ultimately. A hunter may have caught a bird and tied it with a place, and then he does his own thing. That bird flies this direction, that direction, doesn't find a refuge and comes back where it is tied. So also this poor mind, or this ahankara, in the waking state keeps on flying to this object seeking happiness, to that one seeking happiness, to this one seeking happiness, keeps on going from one to the other. Is it not so? Constantly during the waking state we have one agenda. Why is the mind wandering from one place to the other? It didn't find what it wants here, goes there. Didn't quite find there, goes elsewhere. Did not find what it wants, goes elsewhere. I don't mean changing house or changing job. I'm changing objects. Mind keeps on thinking of one thing after the other, either by habit or because it is seeking something. Does not find any resolution. In dream state, same thing happens. Same samskaras. In the dream also, there also mind keeps on running from one thing to the other. Does not find any refuge, does not find respite. So in deep sleep state, it comes back to its own source, which is a self. Upanishad says that in deep sleep state, sata somya tada sampanno bhavati. Sage Uddalaka says to his son, Shvetaketu, hey Shvetaketu, at that time that state of deep sleep, the ahankara or the individual becomes one with Sat, one with Paramatma, because that is his true nature. So that is where the mind abides in its own self. But mind doesn't remain mind also in deep sleep. But that happens by default again, Sleep is by default. Thank God that it is there. Bhagavan has done it. But we have to do that deliberately, wakefully. What happens in deep sleep by default is what we should be doing alertly, deliberately, wakefully. That the mind should be released from its wandering occupation, recognizing that, hey, this is useless to go anywhere because what you are searching is your own self. Abhida bhavana. The mind should be educated constantly. Mind comes up with this desire, I want this, I want this, I want that. What do you want? You remember that what you are seeking is your own self. So as the mind understands this, as the ragadveshas reduce, as impurities reduce, the mind will realize that yes, what I am seeking is my own self. That happiness will manifest in the mind. Right now, even happiness is nature of mind also, by the way. But then why do I not feel happy all the time? Because of ragadveshas. Raga sends him this way, dvesha sends him that way, and they pull the mind one direction to the other. Attachment, aversion, likes, dislikes. As the mind becomes free from this, by bhakti, by worshipping the Lord, and therefore making me more and more important, the object of worship should become more and more important than other objects. Ultimately, all my attachment from the world should be directed and centered upon attachment to Ishvara. Attachment is called bhakti. Attachment to Ishvara is called bhakti. So to be attached is the nature of mind. And so use that nature of mind, that it is attached here and there because that's where it's seeking thinks that is happiness. Convert that attachment to the attachment of our Ishvara. Ultimately, all attachment goes away, one attachment remains, and mind gets complete respite. More and more it comes closer to itself, with more and more satisfaction, contentment it gets, and it is totally content. Upanishad says, like the birds in the evening, they fly back towards their nests. In the evening, the birds during the day, they fly around searching for food and whatever, and they get tired. And they spread their wings and come back to the nest where they get rest. So my personality also ultimately gets rest when swasthata is there, when there is abidance in my own self. In deep sleep it takes place by default, but we wakefully do that by releasing the mind from these ragadveshas which keep on pulling it apart in different directions, by bhakti, by creating attachment for Ishvara. Attachment to the world is what drives my mind away or pulls my mind away. I create attachment for Ishvara. By pujanam, japa, all of these were creating attachment for Ishvara more and more. Discovering rasa from Ishvara. Rasa means the joy, pleasure that I am getting from the worldly object, as I start getting from Ishvara, then the mind will have less and less need to seek pleasures from other things. And here that Ishvara is ultimately my own self. Abhida bhavana. And so a time will come when the mind will get complete contentment, satisfaction from its own self. Then it will remain there, abide there. That is its true nature. Poor thing did not know that that's what is flying around. Now it discovers that I am what I am seeking to be. Swasthata hrutstale manasah swasthata. The abidance of the mind in hrutstale, in the true nature of itself, which is the self of the consciousness. So consciousness, call it Satchidananda, is the true nature of mind. Conscious nature of mind, happiness is true nature of mind. Not knowing that it is searching elsewhere, now it discovers that. So when the mind discovers that I am what I am searching for, and thus it gets complete contentment from its own self, swasthata, then it effortlessly abides in its own true nature, which is a self. Mind's nature also is self. So Ramana Maharshi makes a very big statement here. Kriya bhakti yoga bodhascha nishchitam. Says this is the goal of all the spiritual sadhana. Kriya means karma yoga. What is karma yoga? Nishkama karma yoga. What is karma yoga? It's called nishkama karma. The attitude of nishkamata, selflessness. Or you can call it Ishvararma buddhi. The self is replaced by Ishvara. Something is there. So karma yoga, kriya here means karma or karma yoga, which is what nishkamata. What Ramana Maharshi says that if you practice nishkamata, that also will lead you to abidance in the self. Just practice selflessness in whatever you do. That selflessness has the capacity. Because selflessness is the essential nature of Atma. See, whatever they ask us to practice is because that is the nature of the self. So when Lord Krishna says, Tadartham karma kaunteya, hey kaunteya, perform karma in the spirit of yajna, in the spirit of worship, in the spirit of offering, but that is my nature, that is why. That nishkamata, selflessness, or being a contributor, being one who offers himself, that also leads to the self. So karma yoga also, when done for a long time with the right attitude, will lead you to same abidance in the self. That's what Ramana Maharshi says. Bhakti is devotion to the Lord. Also, even with pujanam, japaha, chintanam, with devotion, when I make offerings at all different levels to Ishvara, that also will ultimately bring the mind to the self, because that's the essential nature of Ishvara. I become what I worship. The rule is you become what you worship. We are what we are is because what we have been worshipping so far. So bhakti makes me one with Ishvara, which is also self. Yoga is chitta vritti nirodha, and cessation of all thoughts will be taught in the next one. There also brings the same thing, result. And bodha or jnanam also with us. So here Ramana Maharshi says that all these spiritual sadhanas, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga or Patanjali yoga and jnana yoga, all of them result into what? Manasvasthata. Abidance of the mind in its own true nature in the self. Rusthale, in the core of itself, in the true nature of itself. Nishchitam, this is what is nishchitam, meaning this is what is ascertained in the scriptures. This is what so Ramana Maharshi is giving us Upadesha Saram here. The essence of teaching of all the scriptures. And so it says that this is what the scriptures teach. You take anything and take it to its ultimate end, whether it is the attitude of selflessness, attitude of surrender and worship, attitude of concentration of the mind, or attitude of which is knowing the true nature of self, all of them will ultimately result into one thing, is abidance of the mind in its true nature. So Ramana Maharshi does not see difference in these different sadhanas. This is not what our Swamiji would say, by the way. But since right now we're discussing Upadesha Saram, therefore I am just relating to you what Ramana Maharshi says here. Vedantin says only knowledge will lead you to this. And karma, bhakti, yoga are means to that knowledge. That's what our position is. But here Ramana Maharshi seems to say that each one of them has a potential of coming into the same end result. Or put it this way, that both are the jnanam is what we are ultimately seeking, and kriya, bhakti and yoga, karma yoga, bhakti yoga and the Patanjali yoga, they are means of the bodha, the knowledge, which results into the abidance of the mind in its own true nature. Okay, we'll take a break here. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.